Mysticism of the Punjab, Balochistan and Gilgit-Baltistan. Currently, Dr. Kalhoro is working on 5 book projects: Sufi Heritage of Sindh, An Engraved Landscape, The Rock Carvings of Taki Valley, Taki Valley. This is in Sindh. Shikarpur, it's in Shikarpur. Perspectives on Heritage, Religion and Economy, Pictures in Stone, The Rock Carvings of Angai Valley, Sindh, and Devotees and Dargahs. This is lovely. Deities, Devotees and Dargahs. Kamal hai. An anthropological study of religion in Tharparkar. Dr. Kalhoro teaches at the Pakistan Institute of Development Economics, or PIDE, in Islamabad. Please welcome. Sorry about this. I have left. Come closer. Well, I was going to introduce the gentleman from Sevan Sharif because he's from Sevan Sharif. And then I thought I should introduce a lady before all the gentlemen. But Dr. Kalhoro, I'm going to talk about his book, I hope. Reema Abbasi is a new friend of mine. It's very, very exciting what she told me on the phone about a connection with Ajmer, but I don't know if she'll speak about that. This is the day to talk about it. She's the author of Historic Temples in Pakistan, A Call to Conscience, and Ajmer Sharif, Awakening of Sufism in South Asia. Reema received the Gender in Journalism Award in 2003, given by UNESCO, and the Rajiv Gandhi Award for the Literary Personality of the Year in 2014. Throughout her career, Reema's writings have focused on marginalized communities, socio-political concerns, heritage, and the values of secularism. Her other passions include travel, arts, and culture. I don't think Michel minds if I don't speak about him at all. He's completely very self-effacing. Michel Boivin is a historian and anthropologist with a specialization in Muslim societies in South Asia. He's a former director of the Center for South Asian Studies. He is now affiliated with the Center for the Study of South Asia and the Himalayas. He teaches historical anthropology of the Muslim societies in South Asia at the School of Advanced Studies in Social Sciences, where he also supervises PhD students. This is good news. He is co-founder and co-editor of the Journal of Sindh Studies and Critical Pakistan Studies, University of Cambridge Press. Some of his books include The Sufi Paradigm and the Makings of Vernacular Knowledge in Colonial Sindh, 1851 to 1923. The Hindu Sufis of South Asia, extremely interesting, is another book he's written. His forthcoming books are The Aga Khan and the Khojas, and a co-edited volume with Manuel Beniccord titled Interreligious Practices and Saint Veneration in the Muslim World. Please welcome Michel Boivin. So we have this amazing topic. Yes. Speak louder. You can't hear me here. Wow. Can you hear me in the back? Now. All this time you couldn't hear me. And you didn't say anything. So if everybody, I hope many people heard Nurul Huda Shah's speech at the inaugural. It's very, very topical, I think, and I'm going to make it topical to this because what she said is topical to everything. The increasing misery in Sindh. I want to thank the Karachi Literature Festival for having the sensitivity to have a session like this at all. And I want to begin by asking Reema Abbasi. No, I just want you to say a few words about what you think about this topic. Why is this particular topic, why are you here to speak about it? I can't hear you.
I've known Kalhoro Saab for many years, and his work is as deep as the ocean, and he works at the speed of light. So it's an honor for me to be a part of this talking about his book, and it's a topic that's very close to, I think, all our hearts, because as we're seeing once again, there's a terrible rise in extremism, in violent incidents, and since Sufi fabric, syncretic fabric, its unity, harmony, humanity are very, very important to, once again, we have to push these values so that somehow there's a counter narrative to this idea of a violent imposition of the supremacy of a singular faith. So I think that takes away from all forms of acceptance or forms of harmony and just being one. So it's as basic as that. And I'm here because I love Kalhoro Saab's work. I learn a lot from it, and I just want to be a part of it and contribute in some small way to this very special session.
So, thank you, Reema. And we're going to ask Dr. Kalhoro why. I hope you know a little bit about the book. It's called Saints, Sufis and Shrines. Can you hear me now? I can't speak louder than this. Away from me. If it's any closer, it'll fall off the table. So, okay. So this is the book. I didn't know it was a book launch. OUP didn't tell me, they just gave me the topic. And then suddenly I saw a poster with this book on it. So I ran out and got the book, and I'm very happy I did that, because this documents many, many parts of Sindh's mystical landscape that we don't know about. You may drive by and see a distant shrine from the highway, and you may not think to get out of your car and walk to it and find out whose shrine it is. From Dr. Kalhoro's book, I found out that sometimes these shrines are as much as 4, 5, many hundred years old. My son, who's sitting over there, was driving in somewhere in Tanda Muhammad Khan, and he said from a distance he saw a shrine, and he didn't know why he was attracted to go to the shrine. I think it was not far from Bulidi Shah Karim. So I think Bulidi Shah is here because it suddenly became so loud. So he said he got out of his car and he walked over there and he sat down in the shrine and he was lost in meditation. And he came back to Karachi and he said, well, mother, what happened? So to me, these places are alive. And we're going to ask Dr. Kalhoro to explain to us why he has done his work. It's a scholarly work, it's academic work, it's anthropological work, but why was he pulled to the mystical landscape of Sindh?
Thank you. A very simple answer to your question, that why did I write this book? Basically, if you read this book, it's an ethnography, as I'm an anthropologist. So I have brought, so I'm sure that I'm very loud, so you can hear me very well. So these are the basically ethnographic field notes that I brought from the field, and then read secondary sources where I thought that it is important to include those sources. So anybody who wanted to read or who wanted to carry out further research, he or she should know about the sacred spaces, the diversity of sacred spaces that we have in Sindh. So this book is about very lesser known shrines and saints in Sindh. Everybody knows about Shah Abdul Latif Bhitai. You know about Sachal Sarmast. You know about Lal Shahbaz Kalandar. But I'm sure that a very few people know that Lal Shahbaz Kalandar shrine is located in Seven. But there are many symbolic shrines of Lal Shahbaz Kalandar in other parts of Sindh. And who built these symbolic graves and then erected or constructed impressive structures on those symbolic graves? So friend, another interesting question arises from this debate, that why we built symbolic graves? Because it was very clear that Kalandar belongs to different faiths. He is venerated by both Muslims as well as Hindus. And then Hindus built astanas, chilagas, even in Sindhi we say kando. Kando means tree. So where Kalandar on way to some sacred space or on way to pilgrimage to some sacred space, he halted at one place, and that particular place becomes a shrine over a period of time. So this book will give you an introduction about Sindh's lesser known shrines. If you go to Badin, you will see a large number of shrines everywhere, but you hardly know the history of these shrines. And since religious history is very complex and contested, we know Ismaili history. Now, when you say Ismaili history, maybe some shrines belong to them. But now, why Ismailis are not visiting those shrines? So in this book, with my anthropological gaze, or understanding, or my anthropological training, took me there, and I looked deeper, and interpreted the meanings of the words, of the spaces. Then I thought, Shah Abdul Latif Bhitai is known by just one name, Shah Abdul Latif Bhitai. Why Kalandar carries dual identity? Why Jamil Shah Girnari, whose shrine is located at Pir Pato, is also called Gorakhnath by Hindus? So he carries multiple identities. I mean, if you read more about him, I'm sure Michel Boivin has also written, about Shivite cults. So he has discussed about Jamil Shah Girnari. But I have added more, that in Kharir area in Gujarat, he is known as, wherever he went, he preached among various communities, and he was known to them by various names or different names. In some areas, I'm talking about Jamil Shah Girnari, he was known Haji Badang Bajro. In Pachmai area, he was Pachmai Pir. So there might be some other Pachmai Pir, but why he adopted that name in particular area, it is interesting. I will come to this point later on. And then he is also known as Kattar Pir, Gorakhnath. And then his disciple, the chief disciple, was Pir Pato. His shrine is also located there. He is also known by another name, Gopi Chand. Hindus worship him under the name of Gopi Chand. And interestingly, I have traveled every nook and corner of Sindh. So I have seen symbolic shrines of Pir Patho, even small temples in Tharparkar. Hindus have built small asthanas of Pir Patho where they worship him. And what basically, when you see or visit asthana of Hindus, of Pir Patho, what artifacts are there? Posters of his shrine, cave, which is located at Pir Patho. There are interesting, stories about a cave. And I think we don't have much time to, discuss each and every part of this book. But, the story is very interesting. So these stories for anthropologists are very interesting to connect and reconnect, construct and reconstruct the religious history and the local history of the area. So apart from these dual identity shrines or saints, I also talked about in this book about female Sufi shrines, which is my next project. Hopefully my book, which I'm writing on the role of women in art, architecture and religion in Indus Valley. So 2 or 3 articles are in this book. So there are female shrines in Sindh. So this is a very brief introduction. So I will share more if there is any question from the audience. So I think I must stop here and give time to Michel to speak more on this book.
Yeah, we'll come to Michel, if I may call you that. I think we need a little interlude of music here, because I recall as a child, and many of you may remember this, I was a little girl growing up in a place called Guru Mandir in Karachi, and I could hear some of our aunties singing, Raghupati Rag Moraja Ram, Pathit Pamar Sita Ram, Ishwar Allah Tera Naam, Sabko Samadhi De Bhagwan. So Ishwar Allah, it was part of the fabric of Sindh. They used to say Ishwar and Allah in the same breath. So that was our Sindh, and I think I've learned from Dr. Kalhoro's book that in many, many parts of Sindh, this stays true. The syncretic, the amalgamation, the love, and tolerance is a very, very thin word for what we had, and we hope to have again, inshallah. I'm going to come to you, our French brother who's so much in love with Sindh that he doesn't seem to go back home. How long have you been here? How many years?
It's secret. Because if I told you, you will know my age.
So, he's a spy. We know he's a spy from NATO or somewhere.
No, please.
Michel is one of the most accomplished researchers on aspects of Sindh. He's basically a historian, right? Basically, it's history. But it's fascinating what he does with certain aspects of our Sufi culture. He's delved very deep, and in the latest paper that he's written, I think it's the latest because I found it on academia.org where everything appears. It's titled, At the Crossroads of Sufism and Vedanta, the Building of an Interfaith Dialogue in Colonial and Post-Colonial Sindh and Beyond. Michel looks at the nexus between Neo-Vedanta and Sufism. And Michel, I had a lot of trouble with this paper because you went so far as to say that Vedat, which is oneness, unity, is not there in the Sindhi vernacular. Can you explain why you said that? You said we've translated it as the word hek, hikro, hek. But Vedat is very much there, I submit to you, because I just sang a poem that said, Aval Allah Ali Vedat Vadi Vali Vedahu. He says that, Latif says, Vedat, and many, many Sindhis use this term. And Vedatul Wujud, it's in every scholarly conference. So why did you say that we don't use that so much? that it's not there in the Sindhi vernacular.
Yeah, first I wanted to speak about Zulfi's book.
Okay.
But I'm sorry because this paper you are referring to is very old. I don't remember.
You don't remember? This was published?
No, I remember, but not the contents.
Okay.
Because I think it was published 15 years back. Or so, because it was about, what was of interest with me, because the Wahdat al-Wujud is a very important concept in Sufism, and I wanted to see how in Sufi poetry in Sindhi, it was vernacularized, it was Sindhiized, so to say. So, and so that was, I was looking at all this issue related to Ekro, to unity, Wahdat.
So Hikro is used, but Wahdat is used everywhere. It's in the books, it's in the conferences, in the scholars.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to now continue discussing about, we don't have so much time for such an important topic. I want to ask all three of our wonderful participants yes? You want to speak about your book?
Yeah, no.
That's why we're all here, for his book.
Yes, I just want to say that since the time I met Dr. Kalhoro, I was very impressed by his work, and this new book is only a kind of new evidence, because all throughout Sindh and maybe Pakistan and a main part of South Asia, I don't know another scholar who was able so much to, to put in light all this richness and variety regarding spirituality in a given area. Of course, it is Sindh. And I was so, because, I did some work on the history of Sindh and the interaction with other parts such as Kutch, Gujarat, and so about this Natpant, for example, Vilnat. And for me it was such a discovery to see that there are still in Sindh places devoted to Vilnat, this, and another example, for example, yes, it was related to the Madhavi also. So, because I knew the history of the Mahdi of Jaunpur in the early 16th century, he came to see this and that, but also I was so amazed to see that still there are some followers of this spirituality coming from this Mahdi of Jaunpur. So that's why I just want to highlight how important is his work. And even on a more personal level, is so, because as you can see, I am an outsider, despite the numerous years I'm coming, but always he was so open and helpful to someone like me. And I just want to take the opportunity to warmly thank you, because I remember, even when I was to publish a book, for example, I wanted in this book that the Sindhi word related to Sufism to be put also in Sindhi script. And so I asked him to check, and of course he did check, so he's also so helpful. And so only a last word, because since the years I'm coming to Sindh, I really want to praise Sindhi hospitality and welcoming. And for example, there are many people here. There is also Mr. Khadim Somro, who was so helpful with me in Sevan, because we have a research project in Sevan with a team. And so, of course, without the help, collaboration of so many people, nothing could have been possible from my side. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to ask Dr. Kalhoro how he sees the Sufi landscape, since this is our topic today, given this destruction by the floods. So as I see it, Sindh has always been at the mercy of oppression, There have been invaders. We're always talking about Arghans and Tarhuns and Mughals and the military and this and that. Sindh has always been under oppression, Matha, from the top. But the land, we've always had the land. The poor of Sindh, which is the majority of Sindh, have always had the land feed them, support them. And we had our shrines. But now, how does he see the landscape of Sindh after it's been underwater and with the spiraling poverty, with all the news that is coming in of people selling their children? I don't know if this is true, but Nur al-Huda Shah talked about babies being born in the water. So I want to know what you see today in the mystical landscape of Sindh, given the misery of the people today. Let's speak on topic.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit different from what I've written in the book. Yes, I think, of course, floods caused displacement, and people moved from their original places, and some shrines came underwater, yes, and some were destroyed. So now I will pick from where Michel left. So he was talking about the rich traditions, the rich mystic tradition that we have in Sindh. So in this book, when I say saints, so I'm referring to both actually, rather to three different religions: Hinduism, Islam, and Sikhism. So in Sindh, there are shrines which belong to Udasi Panths, Hindu ascetics, and Muslim mystics. So one of the articles is about the development of Udasi Panth in Sindh. I have written that Baba Sri Chand, the eldest son of Guru Nanak, traveled to Sindh, and his perspective was different from what his father taught. So he was Udasi, and the word Udasi is basically derived from Sanskrit Udasin. So they are detached from the word. So means in order to become Udasi, you have to renounce the word. So they typically follow the the Shivaite traditions in the Nath tradition. So he traveled to Sindh, and two important dhunis. When we talk about Nathism or any Hindu ascetic, so we talk about dhuni. Dhuni means campfire or renouncer's hearth, as we call also in Sindhi dhuni. So dhuni dukhaye ve. So if you wanted to become ascetic, you have to renounce the word. So there are two important dhunis or shrines which are associated with the visit of Baba Sri Chand in Sindh. One is at Rohdi, now it is called Baba Khushi Ram Ji Darbar, and another is Fakir Jogot in Tata. So these are two important Udasi shrines in Sindh. And then there is many other Udasi centers in Sindh. You can talk about Shikarpur. There are also Khalsa shrines actually in Shikarpur, Gadi Yasin, Jekmabad, in both, in upper and as well as in lower Sindh. So this book actually is the first in the series of 3 that I'm writing. In the next book, there will be more about female shrines and Hindu ascetics, be it Nath, Puri, Giri or Bharti. The third volume of the book is exclusively on sants, swamis and satgurus. I want to introduce to non-Sindhis and also Sindhi scholars to know the rich religious or mystic tradition that we have in Sindh. I want them to know about what do we mean by Radha Swami tradition. I'm sure nobody knows about what is meant by Radha Swami tradition. People should know about Advait Manth or Sant Mat, or people should know Nathism. When we read Shah's Risalo, there are two surahs which are exclusively dedicated to Hindu Naths or Hindu saints, Kahodi and Ramkali, and there are other surahs as well where Bhitai has mentioned. When he say Kanpata, Kanpad, Kapdi, Dothi, Mahesi, so he is basically referring to the various sectarian affiliation that we have in Sindh. But much before Shah Abdul Latif Bhitai talked about Hindu ascetics, the first Sufi saint, Sufi poet who talked about Veer Nath, as you mentioned about Veer Nath that I've discussed in my book, was Miu Shah Inayat. He said, if you wanted to learn ikhlas, adab and manners and norms, what Vedi Veer Nath ji, go and learn from the Veer Nath tradition. So this is the beauty of Sindh's shared syncretic traditions. So I have a lot to say about syncretic traditions because as an anthropologist, my interest has always been on the shared heritage in Sindh. So hopefully in next year's Caliph, we would be talking about the syncretic tradition in detail and more about shared heritage. So now I think Reema will have more about shared heritage.
Yes, we're going to speak with Reema now because she told us about the soup kitchens you'd mentioned about how at Ajmer Sharif they serve vegetarian food, so Hindus and Muslims and Sikhs and everyone can eat there. But do you just mention something, Zulfiqar, about Shah Inayat? Wasn't he the one who said Jo khere so khai? Was he? Mio Shah is a different one. Okay. So what would you like to tell us about, how would you answer my question about the mystical landscape today in Sindh? How does it serve humanity? Because that's the conversation we had.
I would want to, what fascinates me the most about Sindh is the role that the river Indus has played in this nurturing. It's the nurturer, it's the creator of all these, it's the confluence of humanity, multi-religious culture and beliefs. So Indus alone has seen and nurtured two of the most primary faiths in the world. Over 3,000 years ago, Hinduism, and then much later Islam. So I think Indus has to be given a lot of credit for where Sindh and all these cultures and their entire nature of bringing all faiths together and setting the attack on narratives which define us, which seek to impose social orders on us. I think all these shrines attack that and keep us, give us that right to choose, right to believe, and right to be together, quite simply. As Kalhoro Sahab was saying about the caves and the many shrines that we find in caves, and Muslims go there and Hindus go there. The cave is also connected to Shiva, so there Hindus go there with the same kind of belief. They share our belief, we share their belief, and so that's one aspect. And then, given that again Indus is also known as Sindhu Mata, so that gives Sindh and its identity, and then it takes you to a lot of aspects of Hinduism. So Mata meaning mother, it again that nurturer, and along it, if we start with Hyderabad, the Sufis there multi-religious identities and significance have persevered. So he spoke about the seven, and just in seven, when the Urs starts, that begins with Hindus ki Mehdi. The Rasm-e Henna is performed by the Hindu community. So seven again is a guardian. And then we come to Hyderabad, where Kalhoro Sahab will elaborate a little more. There's the Chaliha Sahib, which connects to Varuna, the goddess of water. And that's why all religions attract to this entire chain of shrines which are connected to water, such as Satnam festival in Ghodki. Then there is, Odero Lal, there's Sadhu Bela, then there is along the Indus this is. And we have Sadhu Bela. In the center, we have a Parsi worship place near there, and we have a church also, a St. Xavier's church there, and a mosque. So that alone is an entire complex, an entire sort of row of which defines this province. And then we have in Alayar, Panra Pir, right, in Alayar, and Pir Pitharo in Umarkot, Pir Pithoro, and then Zinda Pir is also Khwaja Khizar, there's Rama Pir, there's Odero Lal. All these are connected to, again, water, and that goddess Varuna taking different forms and different names and different shrines for different people, different beliefs, and sometimes they all come together in one shrine. So this is going to just a final point. What is also important in my sort of various researches is Sindh's indigenous folk culture, such as Sassi Punnu and Sassi's Mazar. It has become a Mazar, and it's called the Shrine of Love. And there you will find a lot of Hindu traditions being followed, a lot of Muslim traditions being followed, a lot of Sikhs arriving, and she's somehow been given this status of the goddess of love, or Venus, or, and Punnu, of course, is buried far away, closer to the river bed. And so that's another aspect of Sindh which is fascinating. It, brings folklore to some and belief to others. So I think that quickly to wind up, I just want to say that there are silsilas, Sufi silsilas in Sindh. I don't know if Kalhoro Sahab has touched upon this, but I just want to quickly touch upon the fact that in Ghodki, Badin, you have the Qadri silsilas descendants, you have Naqshbandi descendants, you have Survardi descendants. The only silsila that you don't find in Sindh is Chishtiya silsila, and that has stayed in Punjab. Many believe that Baba Farid is the only seat in Punjab, whereas we have 5 seats, Baba Farid, Maharvi Sharif, Sial Sharif, Golra Sharif, and so that's that significant presence of Chishti Silsila, but sadly, really sadly, we don't find any descendant in Sindh.
Thank you. Let me respond.
Yes.
I think you're right. There are different Sufi silsilas in Sindh, but Chishti silsila is not as widespread or as prevalent as other silsilas were. But there are, when you talk about Chisti silsilas, there are two important, branches or suborders within Chistiya. One is Nizamiya, or Nizami silsila, and other is Sabri. So I think the first Chisti Sabri Sufi came to Shikarpur, and his name was Amin Chishti. And there is like a lot has been written, and I have also written an article on Amin Chishti. That anybody who wanted to know about Chishti Silsila in Sindh can read my article on, Mystics and Masks of Shikarpur, which was published in the Friday Times. You can Google and you can see the Chishti Sufis and Chisti, particularly Sabri Chistis, not only Shikarpur but also in Karachi and other parts of Sindh. So now coming back to your the point that you talked about, the dual identities. There are so much in this book that I cannot talk. So I just will pick 2 or 3 perspectives. One is dual identity. I believe, and I have proven through my research, and my research shows, and through secondary sources, that some of the shrines which carry dual identity are connected with Nizari Ismailism. For instance, you can call Mango Pir, he is also known by another name, Lala Jasraj. Makhdoom Pir Pitoro, he is also known by Muslim as Makhdoom Nehmatullah, Ram Jago, Makhdoom Shafiqur Rahman. Then you have, and the list is very long, Reema. So then you have Ibrahim Shah in Badin, he is also known as Ram Baraho. Why is called Ram Baraho? There is history, mystery and history as well behind these dual identity shrines. So the last point that I wanted to add is about the inclusiveness of Sindhi Darbar and Dargah culture, which I have discussed in the book. There is one shrine near Nindo in Badin. So there is a female shrine of Hindu women who belonged to lower caste of Hinduism. She was from untouchable, Shikari caste, so people, normally don't share space with those, Shikari caste tribe. So, but she was rejected by her own community, but was owned by Muslim saint, and his name was Raj Sen Sumrani. So when you go to Raj Sen Sumrani's shrine in Nindo, in Badin, so first people go to my Nuri Shikaran's shrine. First you have to say salam to her, and then you go to Raj Sen Sumrani's shrine. So this is like the beauty and inclusivity of Sindhi Darbar and Dargah culture. When I am using these terms, there's also difference. So a line of difference can be drawn between what is Darbar and how it is different from Dargah. So I think this is all that we have to say.
I just have a question for you that's bothering me. You mentioned the Radha Swami. Is it true that the Radha Swami were very prevalent in Lower Sindh, but especially Hyderabad and Karachi?
No, it is not. Actually, it first came to Shikarpur. And Shikarpuris later on spread this tradition. It came from, from India, and it was, I think, founded by Dayal Singh in Agra.
Yeah.
And then it came to Shikarpur, and from Shikarpur it went to different parts of Sindh. And there is no, normally when you say Radha Swami tradition, so they say Mandir. There is no Mandir when you talk about Radha Swami. There is Satsang. So this is like another debate. So everywhere where they are, they establish or set up satsang, the sacred gathering, as they call it in Hindi. And then Shikarpuris, why Shikarpur? Because the Shikarpur was the hub of commerce and economics, so these Shikarpuris, accepted different religious traditions, and at the same time spread, and wherever they went, they,
so we're going
took
to hear
this
from,
tradition there.
Can we just hear from Michel on this point? Reema, just Michel's response to this point, if you have one. Do you have a response to this? Radha Swami's?
Yes, yeah. Yes, regarding Radha Swami, I have a comment because I know that it is very important among the Sindhi in India. This movement is growing more and more among the Sindhi in India. But also I had two or maybe three comments because we are talking about something like the making of spirituality in Sindh. And we didn't pronounce because Madame spoke about the Hindu legacy Muslim, but also there is a missing link, the Buddhist. Because as you know, when Muhammad bin Qasim came to Sindh in 711-12, there was a Hindu king, not church, but his successor. And we know very well that this church had usurpated the throne from a Buddhist king, and that for centuries Sindh was ruled by Buddhists. So there is also the issue of finally, what was the role played by Buddhism in this making of spirituality in Sindh? But as I used to say, we are very dependent on sources, historical sources. And unfortunately, regarding Buddhism on Sindh, there are not so many. We have some stupas, of course, and others. But since the Buddhists were also in Sindh, we can suppose that they did play a role in the making of spirituality in Sindh. The other point is also regarding to both Ismailism and Sufism, because for the Ismaili there is always this idea what was finally the interaction between the Ismaili and the Sufi, but according to the literature, we can see that there was some competition between them, between the Ismaili Dai, Pir, and the Sufi Pir, but we know, according to historical sources, that the Ismaili came before the Sufi. Because, Sindh was an Ismaili kingdom from the 10th century onwards, and they were vassal to the Fatimid Empire in Cairo. And for Sufism, the main growth of this Sufi tariqa came after the Mongol invasion to Iran and Iraq, and especially with Sohrawardi, when Bauddin Zakaria came to Multan, but it was only in the 13th century. But in the Ismaili literature, you can see you have, and even I think in some Sindhi, how to call Munajat or other devotional literature, you can find some allusions to competition between Sufi and Ismaili. And I have a last comment, and it is a question to Zulfiqar, because according to my very limited knowledge of Sufism and the Sufi in Sindh, when I started to come to Sindh, because before I did some study in France, but I was more working on Maghreb, Morocco, and even Near East, Syria. So my knowledge on Sufism was related to this country. And what was amazing, it is that in Sindh, of course, the local Sufi, they claim to be affiliated with one of the main four tariqas, Sarawaliya, Naqshbandiya, Chishtiya, and the fourth, Qadiriya, thank you. So of course you can find, but I was feeling like this affiliation was a kind of distance, and that the local Sufi was very rooted in the locality and in this, in that, and sometimes it is impossible to find if such Sufi in Sindh was affiliated, was acknowledge or exit Talca. So I'd like to have Zulfiqar's feedback.
I'm
Just
sorry,
one last point.
No, one moment.
Just last one
Just
point.
one moment. As moderator, it's my job to remind everyone we have only 5 minutes, so.
Just one point, just I wanted to add what he said. Yes, of course, there are influences, not from Buddhist traditions, but also Jain traditions as well, on since Sufism. But when you talk about Ismailism or Ismailis, I think Ismailis were the first to use the term Peer in Sindh.
Yes.
And Ismailis were challenged, the growing power of Ismailis were challenged by Suhrawardiya, Sufis. And then, there was like a conflict, and there was Sunni persecution of Ismailis, and then they went into Taqiyya. And once they went to Taqiyya, they adopted a different mode of conversion. And then they used to convert people through dual identity. And let me tell you, if you go and bring ethnographic field notes, if you know the ethnography, if you visit shrines, there's a lot of transformations taking place, and it has been taking place since decades. So these Ismaili peers are dais. So original identity was only known to one or two. Nobody knew that a person who is preaching among Hindus as a Padalad, as Pir Tajuddin was known to Hindus, or even Pir Sadruddin, his father, or even Kabiruddin, his son, who became a Pir after the death of his father. And there was a tension between community when Pir Tajuddin died. There was a confusion of the succession, between the various sons of Kabiruddin, and then we know that Pir Dadu came and he stayed in Thatta, and there was a resistance from the local community of Thatta. Then he fled from Thatta to Jamnagar and others. So we know the stories. I have discussed all in this book. Since religious history is interesting, but at the same time is very complex. In order to know the complexity of Sindh's rich traditions, you have to bring the ethnographic field notes, and then that should be supported by secondary sources. This is my last point.
Thank you very much. But before we close, I hope we have many more sessions like this. We don't have time for questions. We do? Okay, go ahead. I'll tell you later, after this.
Thank you to all the panelists for such a wonderful discussion. And I have a question for Kalhoro Saab, and this is about, we know that asceticism is a flavor of Sufism, and the idea of dropping out of the world and rejecting all material life is one aspect of what a Sufi can be or what a mystic can be. However, I wanted to ask you, what is the evidence, or rather the history of Sufis of Sindh, especially being very politically active and leading community as they are, and their messages of harmony and syncretism, I think, are by very nature very political messages as well. But do we see Sufis historically, and especially the big ones in Sindh, lead politically?
I got your point. Now we talked about Sufis, saints. Just remember, we're not talking about now Gadi Nasheens. So you're talking about the Gadi Nasheens. Yes, Gadi Nasheens are very powerful. Yet even some in Suhrawardiya, they were very close to the power circles. If you talk about Multan and others, and sometimes there was a conflict going between the rulers of Sindh and Delhi. So they played a role of intermediary. So Suhrawardiya was very political active, and still they are, if you see. But as compared to Qadriya, no, they were not very political active, and it's simple actually. So yes, in history we know that Suhrawardiya are very active.
All the way in the back, there's a question. By the
Thank you.
time you get
Thank
the
you
mic.
very much. I have just an observation or clarification. Really, it was a great talk on the mystical landscape of Sindh, and you brought about everything about saints, Sufis, and shrines. But one thing I was just wondering, that you didn't talk about Seven Sharif and how he's connected with the Ahl-Bayt, the descendants of Holy Prophet, and we have great Dhamal and Qawwali about it, but you just ignored it. And ironically, in Karachi, in the city of Karachi, the saint we have, you also ignored it. Would you like to clarify it, sir? Thank you
I
very much.
think there are a lot that we need to discuss. But you see, in just 1 hour, you cannot discuss everything. There's a music traditions is entirely different from one to another. If you talk about Dhamal, there is like, zikr of Miyawal Tarika, which is entirely different from, the other shrines. If you have been to any shrine that belongs to Miyawal Tarika, they, play Surundo or Sarangi. One person sings Azi, and another, plays, Surundo. I say, let me just tell you. So, in I think just 1 hour, we cannot talk about every thing. So this was not literally possible, my brother. So Miyawal Tarika say, Azi yakin deun, Allah degun, Rasul degun. See, this is how they start. And if you go to other shrines, you have, the Darazi Fakirs song. And, then there is a musical groups associated with different Sufi shrines. Then you have a song of Rakhil Shah, Chizal Shah. So I think lot things need to be discussed. But Dhamal, I think we will have another session to discuss Dhamal in detail. But I discussed Dhamal in the book. If you wanted to read, there is a chapter on the cult of Kalandar in which I discuss Dhamal and the participation of the different communities. But it transcends the caste barriers, religious boundaries, even gender boundaries. Last.
So I'm being told that we finished. Can we take just one more question? One last question over there in the middle. You need to get a mic, please, quickly. Yes, go ahead.
Gee, I wanted to ask, there is discontinuity between the Indus Valley civilization and then the later religions. I wonder, work, if you found any traces of influence from that period to the Sindhi tradition of Sufism, etc.
Did you understand the question? The relationship between the Indus Valley and Indus Valley culture and today's civilization?
Whether
Or
is from, I don't know what happened to the Valley civilization, but I wonder in your studies if you find any traces of Indus Valley in the Sufi tradition of Sindh.
Okay. You mean the ancient Indus, you're associating with Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. Do you want to answer that?
I think, of course, there are earlier survivals on your culture. So yes, there are influences and from Indus Valley as well. Because you see, you never know what traditions were there. But you see that there are signs and symbols that are still basically artifacts that are used at various shrines. So yes, not only Sindh actually, but other parts of Pakistan as well. So yes, of course, there are this survivals, religious as well as cultural survivals in the Sufi traditions.
Thank you very much, everyone. We should thank our panelists for all their brilliance. And this book is available at the back. Right as you leave, you can get Zulfiqar Kalhoro's book from KLF, although it's published by endowment. So I don't know what's going on there. Thank you very much.